This baby's life hung in the balance until you got involved to give him the treatment he deserved. Find out more on the next Defending Life. Hello, I'm Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign. And in addition, I co-host a brand new program here on the EWTN network called The Catholic View for Women. But right now I'd like to introduce to you one of our priest associates who's joining me today on the program, Father Scott Daniels. Father, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Janet.
Well, as always, we'd like to begin our programs with prayer. And we're going to have a prayer from Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day, of course, written by Father Pavone. Today's reflection comes from Living the Gospel of Life, which is a document issued by the United States Bishop, and this is paragraph 34. We get the public officials we deserve. Their virtue or lack thereof is a judgment not only on them, but on us. This powerful statement points to our responsibility to elect pro-life candidates and keep pro-abortion candidates out of office. They cannot get into office, of course, without a sufficient number of people voting for them. Voters need to ask, if a politician can't respect the life of a little baby, how is he supposed to respect mine?
Let us pray. Lord, raise up in our nation wise and virtuous voters, that we may have godly leaders. Amen.
Amen. Well, Father, today's topic is going to be talking about saving lives. And we're going to, actually, it goes up to a country in Canada. And we're talking about baby Joseph, that so many of our viewers were involved, in helping us with baby Joseph. What they have to understand, first of all, is we did not seek out this family. They came to Priests for Life, and they knew full well that their child had a degenerative neurological disease. They had already lost a child previously to the same disease. But all as they were asking for is normal care, a tracheotomy. This is not extraordinary care. It was a tracheotomy to help the child breathe. They knew full well that the child was going to have a short lifespan, but their attitude was, he'll go when God takes him.
Exactly.
Not when human beings are going to interfere by not giving him proper care.
And because the child, or when someone is dying, nobody knows exactly when the Lord's going to take them. There are signs when a person is dying, but love compels us to help our brothers and sisters when they're in need, and that's what happened with baby Joseph.
Baby Joseph, at this point, when they were asking the hospital to treat their son, wasn't dying. A group of doctors basically made a value judgment. What they said was, baby Joseph's life, he's going to die anyway. He might live a few more months, maybe another year. He's dying of this disease. Well, we're not going to treat him. Now, the simple tracheotomy, all that was going to do for the child was to help him breathe easier, make it less labored, assist his breathing. And the parents already had a history by a previous child. They knew that this tracheotomy would benefit their child. Doesn't mean it was going to prolong his life indefinitely or cure the disease, but it would give him comfort and hopefully let him be with them as long as possible until the Lord said it's finished, not till some doctors say no more treatment. And when we think back, I can remember this so clearly, it was like the hospital did not want to let the child, because then, what happened was they contacted Priests for Life, and we said, okay, let the child go out of the hospital, let him leave Canada, come to the United States, and we had a hospital willing to take the child, willing to give him care. But there was a struggle that ensued. The hospital would not let the child leave. And so we had to implore on our viewers at EWTN, all the people in the pro-life movement. We actually had tens of thousands of people email the hospital in Canada. And it wasn't until they had that outpouring of, it's almost like, let my people go, you know? It was like that finally the hospital gave in. And I can remember Father Pavone was on a trip, I think he was even in Ohio, and he was getting ready to get on a plane, and he got the call, no, excuse me, get to Detroit right away. And he flew up to Canada, and, you know, they took the baby in a medical jet. It was Colita Medical Air that donated the trip up there to get baby Joseph, and it brought them to the Cardinal Glennon Hospital in St. Louis, where the child was treated. And he got the treatment he deserved. He got that tracheotomy. Matter of fact, he did so well once he had the tracheotomy that on Holy Thursday, April of that year, 2011, the child was able to leave the hospital with his parents, go back to Canada,
and breathe on his own.
So, I mean, this was truly a wonderful thing for the parents.
That was Holy Thursday of 2011, April, and he lived until September 2011.
2011, right. But he died when it was his time. No one intervened. Right. He was with his mother, his father. He had an older brother. And he was in the loving arms of his family, and he was given all the comfort care that he needed. I mean, it was a marvelous example of we should never we shouldn't let society around us, and this is the scary thing, Father, the doctors now are making these judgments, these value judgments as to who should get treatment and who should get care.
And the question too, who is baby Joseph?
Right.
Baby Joseph is you and me. It's all of us.
That's right. Any one of us could be baby Joseph.
Exactly.
Well, we have a lot more to say about this subject, but we're going to take a break right now with these messages. And stay tuned while we unpack what happened to baby Joseph. It could be you. Stay tuned.
When I found out I was pregnant, I thought I would lose my job.
My boyfriend told me to choose between him and the baby.
I worried about staying in school.
I was already struggling to care for one child.
My parents told me I wasn't ready to be a mom, so I had an abortion.
I had physical problems afterwards.
I went from relationship to relationship.
I hated myself.
I started to have nightmares.
I cried when I saw a pregnant woman.
I tried to commit suicide.
Couldn't bond with the child I later had.
I tried to numb my pain with alcohol.
I struggled with depression.
I had trouble conceiving again.
You see, abortion didn't solve our problems.
It just created different ones.
Each of us thought we were the only ones struggling afterward.
Now we realize many women regret their choice.
That's why we are silent no more.
We found help and healing, and you can too. Call or go online today.
Welcome back to our Defending Life program, where we're talking about baby Joseph and some lessons we can all learn from that. Well, you know, Father, just to reiterate about how he left Canada, we have to thank once again Colita Airlines, who provided the medical jet for his transport, his safe transport with all that medical equipment on board. Father Pavone, of course, was with the father, actually, who flew with Father Pavone. The mom stayed back in Canada with her other son and joined the family a couple days later. And of course, we have to praise Cardinal Glennon Hospital in St. Louis. The care and also what they did for the family. You know, that they were there for over a month, about 6 weeks, while the baby received his care. They were marvelous. I know we can't say enough about the treatment he received there. It was just wonderful. You know, and it was the other wonderful thing that happened while he was in the hospital. The child was baptized. And actually, Jerry Horn from our staff, our senior vice president, he was the baby's godfather. Yeah. So, you know, so much happened, you know, by that child being brought here. He got the treatment that he needed, and then he was also baptized into the church. So, you know, so many miracles happened because of that.
You know, we tend to emphasize the negative in the world. You know, when you look at situations like this, the great blessings of God and people who respond in faith and manifest, you know, God's love, you know, to neighbor. And this is a perfect example. And how Priest for Life itself had just amassed this great army of people who came together.
Well, yes, if they hadn't emailed that hospital, our EWTN viewers, all the people who follow our Priest for Life work, if they hadn't contacted that hospital in Canada, we wouldn't have gotten the baby out. And again, we weren't making any judgment on the hospital in Canada about the care. It was that they were making a value judgment on baby Joseph's life. And he deserved to have ordinary care. A tracheotomy is not extraordinary. It was ordinary care to assist his breathing.
Janet, Priest for Life doesn't advocate treatment to be given in all situations. Yes, we look at the person, we give them treatment in keeping with the dignity that is theirs, but there is such a thing as worthless treatment. We all die. There is a point at which you and I will leave this world, and the body will indicate that. And, we're not interested in just animating corpses. The point is that with any human life, whatever medical situation they're in or whatever sickness they're enduring, no life is at any time worthless.
That's right. Absolutely, Father. And, this is a prime example. And, there's a way that we hear, because I know people might be very scared right now, because I think we're seeing this more and more here, even in the United States, where people are being denied treatment. Right. They are very quick to rush in with these clipboards, with these do not resuscitate, do not intubate forms, when a loved one is brought into the hospital and there may be, and they want them to sign all kinds of forms. It's very, very dangerous. And I'm going to take out here now, Father, a form that really can help our viewers. It's called The Will to Live. And here's one for you, Father.
Thank you.
We have these on our website. You can download them. And for those of our viewers who do not have the internet, we'll be more than happy to send them to you free of charge. The form is slightly different for each state. The important thing here is you do not try to predict the future. You do not try to figure out what kind of treatment I do or don't want, because you don't really know. Right. And I can give a prime example. My daughter was in a critical car accident. She actually stopped breathing 2 times in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Thanks be to God, they brought her around. When they got her to the hospital, they actually induced her into a coma, put her on a ventilator, and she stayed on that ventilator for about 48 hours while they diagnosed what was wrong with her. She's a miracle, because she broke her C2 vertebrae, and she later had to have an operation to fix that. But what if there was some kind of fancy form signed that said, oh, I don't want to be put on a machine? Well, here she was put on a machine for 48 hours, and it was a benefit. It was to help get her over a hurdle. And that happens, Father, a lot. People go in for surgeries, and maybe in surgeries something happens, they have to come out on a ventilator. Sometimes they're on a ventilator for a week or 2. They recover, they come up, they get weaned off the ventilator, and they're fine.
That's right. Sometimes the body is so weakened that it needs the assistance of extraordinary means. It doesn't mean that just because they're in this situation now doesn't mean they're not going to recover or come out of it. Right. We have to do whatever we can to help them.
So if you sign all these forms like these living wills and you're saying, I don't want machines, that is so crazy, because you're going to be denied treatment maybe if you need it. This will to live is the best thing. What you do is you select someone, and it doesn't even have to be a family member. It's someone that you trust 100%, that knows the teachings of the church and understands your feelings. And this is only to be used in the event you cannot speak for yourself. That's the only purpose of this. As long as you're conscious and capable, then you can speak for yourself. This is only in the event you can't. And they can come forward and they can make sure that the Dr. Death is not knocking at your door, that you're not denied treatment, that if you are resuscitated, you are intubated, you are given every chance, that if that's what is needed based on the condition at the time. There are times, when people, like you said, Father, are in the dying process. That's a world of different. But what we're talking about is denying people treatment. I highly recommend. I have a will to live, and many people I know have this, and it really is something very important. And you should have multiple copies. Keep one with your family doctor. One should go with the person who is your person that's going to speak for you. I even keep one in the glove compartment of my car, one in my briefcase, so that if something happens, God forbid, this document can be produced, and it could end up saving your life.
Well, Janet, you and I had a conversation recently, and we were talking about how, to identify, when a person's dying. And I've heard you mention on several occasions, the body itself will indicate that to you.
Well, absolutely.
I think that's beneficial for people to know that.
Well, sure. I can remember quite clearly, Terry Shiloh is the stark case to me. is that Terry Schiavo, she was not in the dying process. She was not dying, okay? They denied her food and water. She was starved to death,
right.
all right?
Yep.
If she had been left on her feeding tube, she would probably still be alive today. She was not dying of any disease. Now, Pope John Paul II, I think it was about the last 2 weeks of his life, he was on a feeding tube.
Right.
But then in the last 48 hours, the doctors had said they had to remove the feeding tube because his body was no longer assimilating the fluids. So at that point, to keep it in, it would have caused the death because then the body would drown. So at a certain point when you're in the dying process, it's okay to stop the fluids. What we don't want to do is to starve anyone to death. That's inhumane.
Right.
You know? Well, the will to live, very important. I hope all our viewers contact us to get that. And we have a lot more things to tell you, especially taking a question from you, one of our viewers, when we come back right after this break. Stay tuned. As pro-life advocates, we need to be able to speak persuasively, not only about how abortion kills children, but about how it harms women and their entire families. One of the best books on this topic was written by one of our full-time Priest for Life associates, Dr. Teresa Burke, founder of Rachel's Vineyard. Forbidden Grief contains some of the best research on the damage abortion does to women and expresses in concrete and real stories and memorable examples. The book is also available in English and Spanish and is a great resource for laymen as well as professional counselors and clergy. Contact Priest for Life at our toll-free number, 888-735-3448, or visit our online store, priestforlife.org/store, and order Dr. Teresa Burke's book, Forbidden Grief, now available in English and Spanish. Thank you. Welcome back to our Defending Life program, where now we're going to answer one of the questions that we received from you, our viewers. Well, Father Scott, today's question comes from John from Orlando, Florida, and he writes, where can I find good resources to answer articles written by pro-abortion reporters?
John, thanks for your question. We are happy to say that Priest for Life, one of the largest pro-life websites, is an excellent place to start. Our search engine, accessible from every page, has been greatly improved, and we have special online libraries of information. If you don't find what you need, go to askfatherfrank.com. Ask us the specific question, and our staff will assist you. As you may know, we distribute, as a joint project with Life Dynamics, the Pro-Life Answers brochure. This booklet, which fits in your pocket, has clear answers to all the most common pro-abortion slogans. Also, the book Abortion, Questions and Answers by Movement Patriarch Dr. Jack Wilkie is a great resource. You can find it and many other resources at www.priestforlife.org/books. Thanks for your question, John. Friends, anytime that you have a question or a comment, please go to askfatherfrank.com and our team will respond to you. Thank you.
Well, you know, Father, this topic really reminds me that we need our viewers really to be writing articles to the newspapers. You know, very often they're covering a topic in the paper, and if you get upset about it, say, that's not right, that's not true, well, then you need to write a letter to the editor. You know, and don't get discouraged. Oh, well, I did it once and they never printed my letter. I know someone that back in Staten Island, New York, part of our pro-life committee, all the way back when Father Frank was my parish priest, that was their job, he and his wife. And they used to every week send a letter to the editor. They would find something in the paper that they could find a reason to say, okay, there's a pro-life message here, we're going to write a letter to the editor. They were consistent every week, a letter, a letter, a letter. And you know, out of every month, you would at least see their letters to the editor at least 2 or 3 times a month. But they were persistent at it. And that's what people have to do. It's the persistence of you know, constantly just sending in that message when you see something, and especially now with all the conversation about health care, about the religious freedom, about the you know, contraception being spoken about. You know, this is the time for we as Catholics to speak up and put those letters to editors in the secular papers, the Catholic papers, and don't forget those school newspapers that your children, the schools they go to, these high schools and colleges. Encourage your students to also write into those papers. we're going to be held accountable for if we had the truth
Right.
and we stayed silent. We're going to have to answer for that one day.
And I think it's important to every day, Janet, even as a priest, I pray for courage through the power of the Holy Spirit
Right.
to be an authentic witness. Like John Paul II, it was almost a motto of his, be not afraid. We must pray for courage and,
That's right.
and come together and work together using our different gifts.
Yeah. Well, we have another great gift in the media, which is, very often we complain about the fact that, we can't get our message on TV. But there's a new thing called YouTube, right, that we can use for the good. And at Priest for Life, we have a lot of YouTube channels. We have, you go to youtube.com, and then we have the following ones. We have Father Frank Pavone. So it's youtube.com/Father Frank Pavone. And Father is always putting up messages. As a matter of fact, what they can do is go to our homepage, where if you see we have the little boxes, and every day there's always a new YouTube little thing that they can link to. But if they want to watch the past YouTubes, they can go to those different channels. Of course, Father Victor Salomon has messages in Spanish at the Sacerdotes por la Vida page, where, again, Father Victor is always putting up another Spanish YouTube. And I'll tell you, the YouTube messages get a lot of hits. And we want people to go up there, watch them, because the more hits you get, it makes things go viral, as you know. I mean, sometimes you have these little nonsensical things that people post on YouTube, like a dog doing a trick or some silly thing with a baby doing something funny. I mean, some of those things get 100,000 hits. What we have to do with the pro-life messages that are up there and the pro-life YouTubes is we have to help them get viral out there so they get out in the mainstream, because guess what happens? If you ever watch this when you watch the news, the media will report on a YouTube nonsensical thing if it got a large number of hits. Like they'll say, oh, did you see that YouTube thing about the dog doing this and that? Well, it got over 100,000 hits. And suddenly they'll show it on secular TV. So we need to use YouTube to get the pro-life message out. So go to our Priest for Life homepage, and from there you can launch into all the YouTube channels. Rachel's Vineyard has it, Silent No More has it with
Deacons for Life.
Deacons for Life.
Seminarians for Life.
That's right.
Well, Janet, I have to admit, I don't mind confessing ignorance. I'm really learning a great deal more about technology, and being at Priest for Life, I'm really learning how to use it well.
That's right, and we don't have to be afraid for it.
Nope,
Absolutely
certainly
not.
don't.
Well, Father, thank you once again for
You're
joining
welcome.
us on the program. And brothers and sisters, I'd like to invite you, when you go to our homepage, in addition to looking at those YouTubes, I'd also like you to give us your prayer requests. We have a section there where you can click on and tell us your intentions. Our pastoral team would like to be praying for you, at the priests especially at Mass. Also, too, you can order Mass cards from us for the living and the deceased. I will keep a supply at home. It's very handy. When you hear someone passes away, you can send in a Mass card for them, but also for the living. It's very easy to have those cards when it's someone's birthday, anniversary, or even as a get well for someone, to know that you're having Masses said for them. It really brightens up people's day. So contact Priest for Life. We'll send as many as you need, free of charge. I also have the bulletin insert. You can save someone's life today. This is chock full of information, starting with the hotline numbers for pregnancy centers, post-abortion healing information, basic information about abortion. And we provide this for your parish absolutely free of charge. If you print 1,000 copies of your bulletin, we'll send you 1,000 of these. Contact Priest for Life, and we will send that to you. And don't forget, our pastoral team, Father Frank Pavone, Father Scott, all our team are willing to come into your community to assist you in building the culture of life. That's all the time we have right now. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode of Defending Life. God bless you.